You're listening to the Social Selling Simplified podcast. Stick around if you too are obsessed with learning things that actually work and believe that success leaves clues. We're all about identifying results-producing roadmaps and getting super clear on how to scale and grow your online business. From part-timer to president, social selling expert Ashley Shaw will help you connect the dots and take the guesswork out of what works to grow a social selling empire. It's time to hear from social selling legends, listen in on truthful conversations, and learn the best tips and tricks to reduce the marketing overwhelm so you can build the social selling business of your dreams. If you're ready to go all in, no holding back, and build the business you've always wanted, you're in the right place. Here's your host, educator, social selling guru, and fitness industry OG, Ashley Shaw.
Welcome to Social Selling Simplified. I'm your host, Ashley Shaw, and in today's episode, I'm diving in with Erica Hepperle. And we're talking about all things cultivating abundance and how to actually use your feminine embodiment in a completely different way to elevate your business. This was definitely amongst one of my favorite conversations ever with a guest. And Erica just had so much to add into really thinking about the feminine in a new way and being able to lean into it as your superpower. So thank you guys so much for listening today. You might be able to hear a little cocoa bean in the background there. She just turned 2 last week and she's just going a mile a minute. So that's a little high from her there. And I really, really hope you find this episode as impactful as I did.
Okay, awesome. Erica, thank you so much for being here today. I am super excited to talk about feminine energy, how it plays into business, and just to have a really, I love this topic. I think that it's so important. And I'm excited to dive in. So let's start with talking a little bit about your story. So how did you find yourself getting into self-intimacy and female embodiment and leadership coaching around that?
Yeah. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Such a beautiful honor. And journey, you can interject at any time. So I'll just go on. But my journey started in the bodybuilding world. So I was a bodybuilder for three and a half years. Really intense. So it was about 5% body fat and really in the masculine energy. And just to really preface, masculine energy and feminine energy are very much within all of us. So how they are expressed can be different depending on how we grew up, can be depending on how we mirrored and modeled our parents or what our childhood looked like. But just to give an overall view before I dive in is the masculine energy is really much about the logics. It's about the strategy. It's about the structure, the systems, right? It's about the holding. And the feminine energy is very much about the energetics of abundance, the intuition, our creativity. It's about our expression. It's about how we flow through life and in this conversation through business. So I found myself very much in the bodybuilding world. It was all about structure. It was all about systems. It was all about doing this, doing that, then this, then that. And there was no space for my expression. And fast forward, I got really ill in the bodybuilding world because I was binging and purging. I was losing weight, gaining weight, and I was in this cycle that was very toxic for my mental health and for my physical health. And I found myself in and out of the hospital, in and out of getting blood work, MRI on my pituitary because they thought I had a tumor. And ultimately, it was like my wake-up call. My identity was so connected to my physical body that I had no space to even know who I was without it. And then it got stripped from me. I gained about 65 pounds in the course of between 4 to 6 months. And from there, I just didn't know who I was. And so I had to go on this journey of really deep self-exploration. And I was forced to step out of the gym, At one time, I had a holistic doctor, a naturopath, and a acupuncturist and herbalist. And they were like, you need to just go for walks and do yoga. I was like, go for a walk? What do I do on a walk? Like I had no connection to anything outside of the gym and the kitchen for my food.
I have a couple questions around this and this unlearning that sort of happened. So what's so interesting about your story is that my story is like very similar to that. I grew up in the fitness industry. My parents owned a Gold's Gym. So I was very much brought up in that similar masculine energy of control, being very focused on my appearance and what I looked like, and really feeling like that was the bar at which either I was good enough or I wasn't. Like around that, we had like a full gym in our basement. My parents like sold the building for the Gold's Gym, so everything got moved to our house. So it was like, I don't know, like I grew up in it was an interesting childhood, like the abductor, adductor machine, like, you know, all these things. It was very, after when you become an adult, you realize, okay, some of these things are very, not everyone, like grew up in that sort of, I guess, environment where it was that centered.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, is one of the things I'm very passionate about is like, how do we unlearn these things that are they feel so ingrained. They feel like it's the blueprint at which you're brought up in that environment. And I'm curious from your experience of, getting into bodybuilding, like what was there anything that you think like sort of led you down that path, or did it just happen upon you that you've, discovered it and it was like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. Great question. I would say for my journey, it was a lot. The body was a really big focus growing up. I remember my mom and my aunts being in every diet, in and out of every diet. I could name every diet from growing up, from when I was 6 years old, all the way until I was, in the bodybuilding world. And so that was a prominent narrative in my household in growing up. I also played a lot of sports and competitive sports. And so fitness was always in my world. And then the other thing that adds to it is I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So the body was very much, so much topic, so much of the focus. Health was very at the forefront of your worth and of how you were received in partnership. So I would say that. And then I played basketball all through high school, and we did a lot of Olympic lifting. So I started lifting in 8th grade. So I guess that would be like 14 years old. And I was lifting with 18-year-olds because I was on the varsity team. So I always had a competitive backbone, I guess. And so when I was not playing basketball anymore, I went to college and I started partying a lot and, drinking, drugs, and I lost myself. And so I found that the only way I could find myself again was to get back into that competitive nature and to go back to like what I knew growing up. So that was a lot of it. And I would say you asked about like how the unlearning of it. Is that what you were speaking to?
Yeah.
I would say the unlearning of these narratives is really, for me and my journey and how I lead my clients, was about first the awareness. So understanding like, where did I fall into this? Where did I come into this world or this narrative or this belief system? And so really speaking to, let me start to explore my family dynamics. Let me start to explore my childhood. What were the things that I saw my parents doing or saw my parents speaking about or saw my parents really uncomfortable about? And really start to dive into like the inner child work and where did that stem from? And then you could even go back, right, and see like ancestors. And I knew my grandma or my lineage, my grandma was very much like on diet pills, and that from my mom's side, my grandma on my dad's side was just very into fitness and health. And so you can start to first create that awareness. And I think that's the first step is what am I doing that I'm not feeling aligned with anymore, or doesn't feel like it's serving the highest level of myself or my highest good? And where did that come from? Where did I adopt these from? And also, I grew up an overweight child. So I was made fun of in elementary school and middle school and high school for being bigger, or I was always picked last when it came to like men or boys. And so it was like, okay, of course I would go to those extremes because I was trying to overcompensate for the inabilities or lack of self-worth that I was feeling. I would say from that is then starting to go into one, like how is what I'm doing related to my lack of emotional intimacy? So do I know my emotions? Do I have a connection to my emotions? And if not, how can I start to develop intimacy with them? And intimacy is really, like I like to say, into me I see, right? It's a close proximity to self. And with that, we're able to start to come closer to those emotions. And there's so many practices you can do for like cultivating emotional intimacy. But because I feel like when you're going to those extremes, or when you're like really in the masculine, even if it's like in business, right? If you're overcompensating in business and your whole life is your business and you work your ass off and it's, really, really rigid and structured, it's, what am I overcompensating for? What am I not feeling in other aspects of my life? And how can I start to feel the fear, feel the shame that I received as a child, feel the guilt. And then from there, I'd say going into shadow work. And shadow work is really a whole topic in itself, but ultimately it's looking at those pieces of yourself that you have denied, repressed, felt embarrassed about, been shamed for, all to you hide them in order to receive love, in order to be accepted, in order to fit in, get your needs met. And so we reject these pieces. So I was rejecting so much of my sexuality as a young child, rejecting my physical body. I was also a very loud, expressive child. So I was always told to, like, I was always in trouble, go sit outside for being too loud. So my voice started to become mute. And it just gets to be this really deep journey. But I would say like that process, even is like, to finish out my own story and journey, is how I started to really fall into this work. Was I started to recognize that I'd built a foundation on something that was my physical body, but on something that was not a great foundation to build on, right? Really building your worth off of how your physical body looks or performs. And then it was also like when I was in corporate, before I came into the entrepreneurial business owning world, was the performance. How well can I do? How well can I show up? How well can I prove that I'm good enough for this position in order to get the recognition, the external validation? And so from college into the bodybuilding world, into the corporate world, I then started to say, wow, like there's more to this. And so I left corporate to become a personal trainer at Equinox. And again, it was still the hustle, the proving, the reaching, the hoping that they see me. And that ultimately was just a journey inward. I started to attend every workshop I could get my hands on, from breath work to intimacy workshops to lucid dreaming workshops, meditation, sexological body work, somatic therapy, right? I could go on, but it really was about like, how well can I know every aspect of myself and go to meet those places that I've been afraid to meet, or sometimes you don't even know, right? So I was just so open to really doing the work. And I also had lost my cycle for 3 years, and that was a deep disconnect to the feminine, or from the feminine. And so, yeah, it was just a really massive journey. And every single day, it's a commitment to how much more can I learn myself. But ultimately, that led me into where I am now, which is the emotional intimate, or the self-intimacy, the connection to our sexuality, our expression, and the feminine energetics of leadership.
Hey, Coach, I finally have something that I've been dreaming of providing for you. I know that you definitely didn't start this business because you really felt like pestering your friends and family and getting ghosted by everyone. Chasing people down or having to follow up with them is definitely hard work, and it can feel so awkward and uncomfortable for everyone involved. But your upline probably told you that this is what successful people do, and they didn't mention to you that unless you're this superstar salesperson right off the bat, you're going to struggle forever if you keep doing it that old school way. 99% of coaches quit because they suddenly declare themselves this expert online and then go back and ask everyone who knew them to just start buying from them when they just started working out last week. And this problem applies to all network marketers, not just coaches. But the 1% that actually succeed have made it because they've caught on to a different system that's been proven to work. And it's just something that nobody really talks about. It's all about taking some simple steps to position yourself as an influencer first. So soon, instead of asking people to talk to you, you'll attract ideal customers who are already excited to learn from you and buy from you. They'll know exactly what you're about and how you can help them. Go to ashleyshaw.ca/fyourupline to learn more and see exactly what I'm talking about. You don't have to hunt people down and make them talk to you in order to get your bills paid for the rest of your life. Check out my short book called F What Your Upline Said and get an entirely different approach that will feel much more organic and authentic. That's ashleyshaw.ca/fyourupline. I'm so excited for you to start implementing these 4 simple changes in your business and see how it absolutely transforms how you feel about your business and the results that you're able to get. If we go back to cultivating or, the lack of being able to cultivate emotional intimacy. This one is, very interesting. I'm raising a toddler right now. So she's 2. And there is a lot of, everyone has big feelings, including toddlers. And of all the things I'm reading, I'm so thankful for all the work done around how to allow your child to feel, and that feelings are good, and that we want to encourage those instead of, maybe things that. It's interesting. It's almost like I feel like shadow work inside of shadow work inside of, like the cycle kind of continues. Because as I'm reading these books and following certain accounts and learning about emotions, I'm also realizing how much of my emotions as a child would have been suppressed through lack of knowledge and things like that, right? And when you have those triggers as a parent, it kind of opens up to, be able to understand, if this is triggering me, then what was that actually happened in my childhood that, if I was taught to suppress it. So we read this book. It was called The Happiest Toddler on the Block, about it's interesting because not only does it apply to, your children, but it's like this self-reflection of, when you're feeling these big feelings, it's like you're supposed to, affirm to your child, Coco mad, Coco really mad, and kind of, getting into the emotion with her. So she feels heard and she feels like a little more understood than, the old, you're okay, which is like sometimes, before I read these books, that probably was my go-to is no, it's okay. And what that is telling the child is that your emotions, just suppress them, fine, you're fine. So it's interesting, how ingrained and rooted it is in our childhood to push away emotions or not be upset by things, and just how much that is sort of a coming home to realizing that emotions are good. We want to feel them. We want to be intimate with them and connected with them. So it's. And
I always that's so amazing that you're reading those books and giving her the space to be able to express. And I always like to say, like, emotions are energy in motion, right? Like, and without the giving motion to the energy, they get stuck. And we like to create like these bad narratives around emotions, even anger, right? Most women are like, I'm not an angry person, but ultimately, like, that's a really, rage is a really powerful emotion when you emote it and you let it come out of your body in a sacred and safe space, right? And it's what we do with emotions that quote unquote make them bad, right? There's no actual bad emotion, but if we are angry and we put that anger to someone else, then it can become aggression, right? And then that can become dangerous. But if we go into our room and we're set up the space and we're like, I'm going to just feel this anger for 15 minutes, and we pound our fists on the bed or we scream into a pillow, that actually can create so much more space to create ideas, to be abundant, to have this glow that people say, oh my God, you're glowing, right? It's because there's not that heavy, dense emotion stuck in your physical body. And we can talk about like the somatics, or the soma is our physical body that holds emotions in our cells, tissues, and can start to create this density in our body. We can carry emotional weight. We can carry our parents' emotions and trauma. But ultimately, like, if you're thinking about how you're running a business, you'll have to work 10 times harder to call in those clients, to have the client say yes to your offer, to get people to see you and your vision, because you don't have space to hold all of the abundance or the manifestations that you want, because you think about your body can only hold so much. I like to think about like a bottle, right? And if you have rocks that are your childhood emotions and that's at the bottom, and then you put pebbles that become experiences that maybe aren't as heavy but still hold some sort of density, and then you sprinkle sand, right? Now your bottle is full and you have all of this heaviness in your body in this bottle. And I'm showing this bottle on video. I don't think it's going to be on the podcast, but you have this bottle that is full of heaviness. And now you're like, I want abundance. I want manifestations. I want money. I want clients. I want to be seen. I want to get on podcasts. I want to speak. But there's no room for those to come in because you're holding so much in your body dense. So when you start to emote those emotions or create intimacy with them, or scream, yell, rage in your room, that starts to empty the bottle. Now the sand comes out. It feels a little lighter. Now the pebbles come out. Ooh, there's more space. Oh, I want to have a 10K, 20K, 100K month. Wow, I can, because I actually have space to hold it, right? And then you empty the rocks out, and now you're like, whoa, we're soaring. So that's kind of how I like to explain emotional intimacy, is like, we don't know what we don't know until we know. The more we start to like really get into with our emotions and inner child work and the shadow work, the more space we have to hold the next level of quote unquote success, whatever that is to you, in our bodies. And again, then we can go into like calibrating the nervous system to really believe, like, to know what it's like to hold, I don't know where your audience is at, but 10K, 50K, 100K months, and already believe that you're capable of it in your nervous system before it lands, before you're like, oh, here's that. You already have, your body's already prepared for it.
So I have two questions for you. So to go back to shadow work for a second, this is one I'm not as familiar with. But what were some of the things that you were able to do to bring up those repressed pieces of yourself? Like, was there anything that was super helpful in helping that come out for you?
Good question. I would say there's a technique called voice dialogue, and with shadow work, and you basically listen to like the voices that are in your head, right? And I'm not saying like everyone has those voices, right? Oh, I'm not enough, or criticize yourself, and just listen. And then when you start to get an understanding of like, ooh, that's the same one that keeps coming up over and over and over again, then you can start to have a conversation with it. And again, there's a technique called voice dialogue, but that was like with my physical body first, because that was where obviously my whole story stems from. But it was this narrative that in order to be successful and in order to receive love, my body has to look a specific way. And so that was blocking me from getting the abundance or the business that I wanted and the partner because of this narrative. So it was really sitting with, okay, how can I give this like voice in my head a name and actually sit and have a conversation with, like, if you think of a child, right? Your child, very, very so much imagination. Like, can we bring that imagination back and be like, ooh, this piece isn't actually me, something I've adopted. And now let me have a conversation face to face with it. And you could do it through like meditation or hypnotherapy. But yeah, I would say that would be one, is just so simple to start. Just really take note, like notes in your phone of when those voices come up or when those limitations arise. And then you can start to really explore where you're blocked. And then that's the shadows. That's where you're like, oh, and then also triggers, like you talked about. You can look at, I'm triggered by this person online. I have to mute them because they keep talking about their 100K months. Oh my God, they're so greedy or they're so boastful. But really, like, why are you triggered by that? And then it's to say, oh, because my family had this narrative around money and that bad people do bad things with money. Oh, okay, that's a shadow. Now I can start to really move through that and work through that in a very simple explanation.
Great examples. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And then when it comes to calibrating the nervous system, this was something I remember before I had my first 7K year, I was in a mastermind, and I remember one of the questions being, how would it feel to have a 7-figure business? I think I said 7K. I mean 7.
Yeah, I was like, you become 7K a year.
Yeah. Which was a big deal when, like when that would happen for the first time. But
yeah,
it was the 7-figure year. Sorry, correct myself there. But that first, like before that happened, and I remember my mentor at the time asking us as a group, like, what would that feel like to have a 7-figure year, or maybe it's like 5 million this year or whatever. And I remember being able to feel it so deep in my bones that it had already happened. And it's been interesting because even just like that moment in time, it's so clear how I felt. And I remember like that feeling, but it's not just something in my experience that I have felt and then it just stays there and you're just on the abundance train to, getting everything you want. Like it is definitely something that there's been peaks and valleys. And so what are your thoughts on how you calibrate that and how you get that energy back?
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. And just like you said, like the calibration of the nervous system is, can I feel this so deeply that it's, once it lands, you're like, oh, of course you're here. Hello. But I would say, just like you said, it's a practice, it's a commitment, a dedication back to that feeling. I would say for me, I've been sitting with, like, it's a lot harder for me to call things in than a lot of people have had the ability to do so. So mine is a consistent dedication every single morning. Everything I do is with intention. Before this morning, right? I knew I was going to be starting. I usually start around 11. I was going to start a little bit earlier today. So I was like, I should probably go to this workout class. And how can I feel the feelings of what this abundance would feel like today? But so it's a dedication, a rededication, a recommitment. You'll fall out of alignment and it's the dedication to come back. But just like you said, I would say it's a visualization. I even use, like, with the feminine energetics, like my body. So how does my body move when I'm abundant? You can do things like nonlinear movement. Nonlinear movement is things outside of the regular planes of motion. So outside of what you would do for like workouts. How can I move my body in ways that feel like a snake or that feel really fluid, and use my breath to start to cultivate that level of abundance and that feeling, that vibration of like, holy crap, I can create this, whatever it is that you're calling in, a 10K month, a 100K year, whatever it may be, a 7-figure year. And it's a recommitment to that. But I think we can use so much of our mind. But when you integrate the calibration of the nervous system, it's in the physical body, right? So can I bring the body and the mind and even the soul in alignment to really feel that this is possible? And in order to do that, you also have to move through the limiting beliefs of, oh my God, I can't do it. Who am I to have all of this? Why would I think that big? So moving out of the resistance. And then how can I physically feel? And again, breath work, nonlinear movement. You can even do like pleasure practices, which is a whole nother topic in itself. And ways in which you can connect to the feminine. Because at the end of the day, you're calling in the abundance through the feminine energy. So through your womb, through your movement, your energy, the body. So it's really like how can you get deeper into the body for the body to, on the cellular level, like you said, in your bones, right? To believe that you can actually have this land. And that's when you can really not have to do like the hustle and grind. The more I work, the more money I make. It's actually like the smarter I work, which is, can I bring all of this energy into my body? Can I really come home to the physical body and regulate the nervous system, that I can actually really create magnetism in my business? So it's shifting from what we are told in society, that we have to work harder and the hours equate to the money. But actually, when we can learn that the mind, the body, and the soul in alignment actually create this magnetism where people have 20K years, and then all of a sudden the next year they're at $1 million, right? And that in society, in the logical mind, doesn't even make sense, because they didn't hire a ton of people, like they just shifted into a new energy, and that's called quantum leaping. And where for the science people, right, quantum physics is everything is energy. And when we are in the vibration of abundance or of love, then we attract that. And so that's done through the physical body, that's done through the cells. So, and then hypnotherapy would be a good one. You can use like timeline regression to move through the limitations. And then you can go into the future and say, how would this feel? What would be the scenario? What will I see? What will I hear? What will I feel when I have the $1 million year, the 6-figure year, or the 10K month, whatever it may be? So yeah, I could go on and jam out about that for days, but I feel like it's looking at things from a more energetic perspective, a magical perspective. Miracles can happen all of the time, rather than like so many people get stuck in the logics of business. Yeah. Like, how can you bring that inner child back to the imagination?
It's interesting that you bring it to, like, that connection to the feminine. Like our first $1 million year, we were literally like, we went from 10K months to 100K in a year. So there was like no, like time didn't really exist in a way, you know? Mm-hmm. And it definitely was that myth buster of like, you know, the more time I put in, you know, it's going to take this time to do this. Yeah. Like, time did not exist. And what was crazy is that when you talk about the connection of the feminine, that was the year I was pregnant with my daughter, Coco. Mm-hmm. And that was our first like $1 million year. And so it, you know, so I haven't quite like fully shared this yet, but it's going to like, by the time this episode will be released, like this will all be out in the open, but I'm currently like 23 weeks pregnant now with my second.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's like this shift sort of happened over the last like 4 weeks where, yeah, like something just really opened up to putting together a mastermind and working more directly with like people that were really focused on building reoccurring revenue in their businesses and helping six to 7 figure, like getting them to that level. Mm-hmm. And it's been a huge shift in the business, but it is like, it all ties back to that energy. The energy has shifted and it's just different. So yeah. I think that like, I could talk to you for hours about all of this. It's so fascinating and interesting to connect those dots. So I'll have to have you back on the podcast because I feel like there's so much more to talk about.
I know. Like I could keep going about the womb, about all of that.
It's so good.
So powerful.
I love all of this. So I have 2 questions to to leave you with. So one would be, if I was going to start to lean into this, and I was somebody that didn't know a lot about this kind of world, what would be a couple of like resources or apps that I could kind of get started with?
Good question. I would say a lot of mine has been through like mentors and certifications of my learnings, and then through the embodiment of it and my own journey. So I would say apps wise, I don't have any super recommendations. I do have a womb meditation app, womb meditation on Insight Timer. I would say is one place to start. So you can go to Insight Timer, look up my name, Erica Hepperle, and then there'll be a womb meditation. I will start to just connect you to the womb. And at first you might be like, what is this? I don't get it, because we're so a lot of times so disconnected. But the more you practice, the more you start to connect. The other thing I would say is there is a book. There's two books I would recommend. One is called Pussy, a Reclamation. It's actually about this woman, Regina Tomhauser, created the School of Womanly Arts. And she created this book, to get a deeper understanding. And then the other one I would say would be Wild Feminine. And Wild Feminine is by Tammy Lynn Kent. Those are beautiful books to start with. And then, that would be a really beautiful place. And then just like connect with nature, get into your body. And then I also have courses and programs that really go into like the feminine and the embodiment and feminine alchemy practices, how to step into feminine embodied leadership as well. So you can always reach out to me, or if your audience has any questions or anything like that, we can jam out on another podcast.
Perfect. So where's the best place to find you and follow you?
Yeah. So I would say the best place would be Instagram, for like, if you have any questions or want to message me, which would be Erica Hepperle, just my first and last name. And then you can find free resources on my website, which is fearlessfemproject.com. And I also have a podcast that talks about a lot of this stuff called Find Your Fearless. And I would say those would be the best places. TikTok right now is my jam. It's so fun. So Elevation Erica, but I haven't developed much on there. So
that's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Erica. I really, really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. It was so great to connect with you.
Thanks for taking the time to level up today. If you're ready to commit to personal and professional growth, move forward, make money, and grow your health and fitness business, head to my free community on Facebook, Business Bootcamp for Fitness Coaches, so I can support you every step along the way. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you right back here next week on Social Selling Simplified.